Hey, welcome everyone to the Book of Aironn. Today we are going to continue in our Energy Kids mini-series, and we will be starting with the first of the four waves or nations, the Indigos. Ooh, very exciting. So get comfortable, settle in, grab something to so you don't get parched, and we'll see you soon. Morning. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Book of Aironn. So, we started our mini-series called the Energy Kids, and we had our intro last time. I did go into quite a bit about dimensions. Probably a lot more than I'm into, but it was, I think, a good foundation for explaining why frequency and what frequency is and how it's different between the dimensions, how we have the sense of vibration, so frequency and vibration. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this. It is something I've been very passionate about, and it is kind of what started my whole spiritual awakening, or at least the last 2 years. Which is wild. It's been 2 years. That's nuts. But yes, originally what brought me to all of this about the Energy Kids is that I had a vision. I've had visions for a long time. Sometimes precog, so future events. Sometimes it's very much like visions, and like I see all kinds of things, symbols, words. I mean, I've had some pretty intense visions, especially in the last year. But I had a vision that I was in space, out in outer space, and infinite space, I call it. And I saw all around me popping up these indigo pods, like seed pods, and then I heard the word indigo, and they started to like pop open, and then I woke up, or I came out of my trance or vision. So I saw that and did not know what indigo meant, but I just went ahead and typed into Google like indigo seeds or indigo pods, and indigo children came up. So what are the indigo children? Well, to kind of take you back before what they are and who they are and why they are, I'll have to take you back to kind of the reason for frequency guidance would be needed. And that kind of goes all the way back to creation and the start of the universe. And across the universe and everywhere we have, this universal knowledge and this universal desire for free will. Free will is something that's not a privilege. It's just a birthright. It's a given. It is just how order is kept. And so we've in this universe been working a certain way, and as the universe is designed to go a certain way. And so if there were to be any sort of like shift dynamic, or we talk about light and dark and how they work together synonymously with each other, but never one more than the other. And it would be quite devastating, chaotic, and just the end of a lot of civilization, a lot of lives, should something like a planet disappear or be destroyed. We as a planet have, since we've been here, had an issue with war and with taking and greed, and this idea that we'll fight and take whatever we want. And so through time and through technology, we have gotten to the point where we really are our own biggest threat, and we are not taking care of the planet. I mean, things are shifting, luckily, because of the frequency shift, and people are awakening, and this is all in part to this idea and this call for help, that the Earth's in trouble. The point that we got to with World War II, we were then now working with atomic bombs, nuclear warheads, dealing with a lot of things that could potentially destroy and wipe out quite a bit of life, and potentially even destroy the Earth completely, which would then create chaos, and it would just everything would go haywire, like I said. So a call went out once it got to the point where it looked like our timeline and our future was very much this apocalypse. And, as a collective conscious all these years, and for years we've always been obsessed with this idea of World War III, or the end of life and civilization and fire and doom, which eventually, we were going to get to. And so the powers that be, spirit, the universe, all of the nations, galactic nations that exist out there, saw this, and because of free will, aren't able to directly intervene and shift and change anything. So a call went out for souls to incarnate and to take up the mantle of raising the frequency and changing that future. So that is why the Indigo souls came. They are the system crashers. They're the ones who will remove any and all things that are not serving humanity, and they're causing chaos and war and famine, and removing those, or bringing the truth out, or almost like a whistleblower, we'll say. But really, because they have been seeding in mass since the late 70s, they're old enough to now take position, or to start companies, or to really get in and do the work and the healing and everything that needs to happen from the inside to then affect everything outside of it. So though World War II happened and went through the late 40s, early 50s, it was taking these decades of souls to be born, and doing a little bit of frequency, a little bit of shift, a little bit of grid work here, being able to get to the point where, they finally could en masse seed and be here in the late 70s. Indigo children are believed to possess special, unusual, and sometimes supernatural traits or abilities. This idea was based on concepts developed in the 1970s by Nancy Ann Tappy, who claimed to have been noticing that indigo children were showing an indigo aura. We definitely had developed enough technology to be able to look at auras and to be able to distinguish colors of auras, and there weren't, if any, indigo auras before this time in the late 70s. And then all of a sudden it was just indigos. So this was, continued on in research. These ideas were further developed throughout the years and led to like a series of books in the like late 1990s. That's when it really kind of started to perpetuate motion and to get out there that, this is and has happened. Indigos are still being born today, but they really were mass seeded in the late 70s to prepare for the other waves or nations of energy kids. And I do say energy kids from the terminology of Denise Dryden, who is doing a large bit of research and writing on these energy kid nations. And her first book, The Indigo Assignment, is out. You can find it, you can read it, you can find an audiobook on Amazon, on Audible. She's going to write books for all four of the waves, all four of the nations of energy kids. And her next book, I'm really excited about. She's starting to talk about and write about the crystal children, which is me, my tribe that I'm part of. With indigos, there are some pretty specific traits across the board. Some of them are, they're very strong-willed, which is all about, not going with what everyone else is doing, but saying, something that's not working or something that's not right, they'll be the first and mostly the only ones to say why and how and maybe even a better way to do it. A lot of them were born in that mass seeding in 1978 or later. They're headstrong, very creative, always practicing, studying, creating. It really becomes kind of like part of their identity, I think, even as creators or artists. They are very old souls, so they have a presence or like a wisdom about them. Very intuitive or psychic. Definitely intuitive and psychic. Almost to like a very supernatural level. Like I said, it's just very obvious that they have some sort of like mind reading or high empath abilities. The first two nations are very much, we have a tendency to isolate. Indigos will do it to kind of clear their energy field or to just take kind of like a breath or a mind, because a lot of indigos, their minds are moving so quickly and they're going through so many different things and planning so many things and reworking so many things. So it's really more of like a silence, kind of just like a peace and a time for thoughtfulness. They're very independent and very proud. Slightly boastful, but not in an ego way. They really possess a deep desire to like help the world in a big way. I think that's just part of the mission. That's part of the soul mission. It's like, hey, I came down here to fix, help raise this frequency. Or now we're decades later and we're old enough that we're more of guiding through the frequency shift and being this voice, this independent and proud voice, but doing it with service to help humanity, help everyone else more than, it helps us for y'all to be helped, right? So we're all helping each other. Sometimes a little wavering between low self-esteem and grandiosity, like feeling like not much and then feeling like too much. And that is really just about an energy shift. It's about being on a higher vibrational level and really like feeling a lot more intensity. Easily bored, I mean, to the point where a lot of them have been diagnosed with like ADD or ADHD. This brings up something I'd really like to address, which is that some people may have heard of the term indigo children from being from the health field. And that is because around the time in the 70s, early 80s, where indigo concepts were being introduced, they were trying to put a label on this attention, quote-unquote, issue, right? And it's really not an issue, it's just more of a different way of thinking, or more of a different way of processing, a different speed even of processing, because a lot of starseeds and lightworkers who have incarnated here that remember, or even don't remember at one point, we all have the same issue with not being challenged enough in school, and or having what people would consider like learning disabilities. But it's only because we are receiving and processing with a lot of different knowledge and a lot of untapped potential that is just kind of waiting for us to bloom and transform. So the indigo children terminology was taken from the spiritual community and placed as a label on children with attention span issues. I'd really like for us to move away from this ideology that they're both the same thing, because it's more of them using our own terminology against us, right? And we have seen this when it comes to the medical community versus the spiritual community, which it shouldn't be. It should all just be one. And luckily we are finding that, doctors are allowing like energy healers, people to come in to do work of energy, and how it has actually helped, and how they're more accepting of it now. So I do like that we're having the bridging of these communities together. But I would, again, really like to take the indigo children terminology out of where it was in the medical community, and, have it be whatever they think scientifically, it is. I think that's why we have less nicknames for things now and actual, like, medical terminology and medical names. So they are, very prone to insomnia or nightmares. This does come from being so receptive to intuition. A lot of us receive what I call downloads or frequency codes while we're asleep. Most people do astral travel when they're asleep, and they're able to kind of like leave. Their soul's able to freely leave. Some people are very aware. Some people have no idea they're doing it. I've had times where I've astral traveled to other cities and been in very distinct places, but never having actually physically been there. That kind of stuff. But I wouldn't know usually that I was doing it when I was doing it. A lot of indigo children have a history of depression. It's kind of like with the insomnia, and if there's a lack of isolation. Really, a lot of the depression comes from like not being aware and not being awake. And then once you awaken and you realize that, like, I am this being, infinite, multi-dimensional being, then you're able to really accept a lot of your own fear or anxiety that you brought upon yourself, and you're able to remove the factors that cause those depressions or anxieties. For most of us energy kids, we are very specific with who we put our energy around. That includes friendships, family. You know, it really becomes a point where, like, you're really only able to hold on to, like, real relationships with people. And then you still hold space for those other people who are not as involved in the relationship, but they become more of a acquaintance, you know, and there's less energy exchange provided in those situations. And it's easier for you to pick up when you're higher vibrational most of the time and living in more joy and less fear, to pick up when other people are either in that higher vibe or when they are in a lower fear vibration where things feel very heavy and dense. Like this very heavy feeling. And then indigo children, they do bond easily with other non-human living things. So plants, animals, minerals, you know. I have recently been more susceptible to plants and feeling a sense of their state or their an emotional state, we'll say, but really just like their energetic state. So it's really easy to like bond, especially with animals. You know, we have a lot of animals. The indigos especially have a lot of animals drawn to them all the time. So those are some of the traits, you know, most of the main traits. I think that's most of it. I will say, if you've had... Oh, there's a book you should read by Nancy Ann Tapp, Understanding Your Life Through Color. It will explain to you the different aura colors and life colors, and how that applies. And, yeah, I think that was it. If this resonated, like, look at, you know, check into it. There are conferences out there for indigo children. I mean, The Indigo Assignment by Denise Dryden. It's an amazing book. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but a lot of these concepts of the volunteers and the energy kids, the different waves and nations, does come from Dolores Cannon. And she is a very powerful channeler, social worker, psychologist, therapist, like just very, was very open and susceptible to receiving other people's memories, past lives. We really owe a lot of this work and a lot of this public knowledge to her, and she's really inspired so many souls and has been able to bring a lot of this to the public and do it for decades. So I really want to make props to her. Also, Julie Balaz, who does and is the forefront on galactic astrology. Her work is great. You can go and look up your past incarnations and some of the origins and or places that you have traveled in your past lives. And you can do that at galacticastrochart.com. You can also look up Denise Dryden on her website at denisedryden.com and YouTube for either of them. So thank y'all for joining me today. I'm really excited. We got to talk about indigos. Much props to y'all because y'all have been the forefront. I mean, y'all have been closing shop and making sure that we all are able to move into this frequency and this new earth. So thank y'all. Much props. All right, y'all. See you next time when we talk about Crystal's children. I'm excited. I'm a little biased because I am one, but I'm excited. Bye, y'all. Thanks. See you soon.